We on? Well, watch it. Okay. For you people out there, Jesus, getting this on cable right quick to let you know some of the cities we understand are only getting 30 minutes. And we're taping an hour at a time when we do this, and the first part of the show more or less is taken up by reading what's known as Kyroots papers. They're a bunch of one-liners, axioms, proverbs, epitaphs, postulations, theories, rumors, and stuff. And as they're being read up here, each page is numbered, and off camera on the screen is flashed the number being read. And the people here in the studio audience, if they hear one they like, they write it down. It gets on a piece of paper the page number, and then each night somebody here, by random, is selected to come up and to look at the list, and Kyroots, and the weather permitting, will look at the page that was requested and perhaps make an additional comment thereon. That's the way it goes. And if that doesn't work, then Vanna can bring us up some vowels for free. So here we go. And Kyroots said, page 7, first one requested, only the stagnant are harmless. If you consider the fact that we've been talking about whatever this sort of thing is, that it has to do with creativity here, it has to do with originality here. Not in the ordinary world, there's nothing wrong with that, but then you're left with a matter of fashion. You're simply left with the crude attempt, the best that people can make of it, the best that they should do, of trying to be original, creative, trying to put some variety in their life, and it comes down to the latest hairstyle, the latest fashion, a new car, a new husband, a new wife, a new boyfriend. Whereas, at the level we've been talking about, one's own personal nervous system, nothing to be flashed about in public, can't be proven, there's no point to it, that you are trying to push your own nervous system here in the neural area into an area wherein the area itself is probably going to go, what the hell are you doing here? You know, who needs this? To do that costs money. We're now in the wonderful world of metaphor because it doesn't cost a cent. Which, if you want to go on the other hand, is one reason that the fashion in the ordinary world does cost, because it doesn't work. And so that's part of the thing for you to think, well, I feel this itch to be different in life. And the cruder, from this kind of view, approach you take, no offense, but the cruder, let's say that you decided, what would make me closer to being an original? What would take me out of the crowd? What would take me from being just a used or a several-day-old loaf of white bread into something exotic? And you think about it, and if you're ordinary, there's nowhere to go with it. The last thing in the world you're ever going to think of is, I believe I'll do something new and exciting with my brain. Absolutely. If all of humanity had a list, that'd be somewhere down about what to do. It'd be right under something like, you know, remove my own esophagus with a pair of pliers. At any rate, we're off the track, but I was going to point out that it is the justice of it all, and so the cruder, that is, the further away from this, which is the only possibility I'm suggesting, or Kyroots is, I'm just trying to go along with this program, is that this is the only possible place to change that has any meaning. You can lose weight, you can get a hair transplant, you can buy new clothes, and it's a hobby. But it will not scratch, if you have that particular, it used to be called spiritual itch, longing for this or that. I'm telling you what it is. It is simply what it's always been. It's the nervous system growing individually. It is life growing. And it's everybody thinking, geez. Whether you say geez or not, but you're thinking, ooh. And so the further you are away from that, just being ordinary and sane as you're supposed to be, as opposed to sitting home and watching stuff like this on your cable set. The further you are away from that, the more it costs, is how I got into this. This is free, assuming you can do it. In a sense. And so the further you are away from it, just note in life, the more you end up paying for it. That is, if we had a nice person, could be civilized, sophisticated, PhD, and they think, what I need in life, what would really set me off? What would be the cherry on my little, perhaps kind of cut rate banana split here, or chocolate sundae? The cherry would be if I had a cherry red Ferrari, if I had a car that cost $169,000. And a person can really believe it. I'm not making fun of that, as you know. Well, not if you got it. Not if you got it and can afford to put gas in it. But the further you get away from this, then whatever you get into your hobby, that is the furthest, just the simple economics of reality, then the more your hobby is going to actually cost. If we were psychologists, which we're not, if we're playing that game, if I make it too complicated, where it ends up is almost like no pain, no gain, in kind of a psychological sense, that you think, well, this car has got to make a great deal of my difference in my life. That is, you finally get it, God knows how, and maybe the first night, all right, the second night, not the first night. The first day you drive it around, and you imagine, if you're a man, that almost every good-looking woman you pass looks and thinks, where has he been? And so it seems as though this is putting me finally on the right track. This is me. I am now an individual. But sometime I'm getting at, if you're still fairly sane, sometime during the night, 2 or 3 o'clock, is something going to strike you and you're going to go out in the driveway, or in surely a garage, and look at that thing and think, whatever it would be, like $2,000 a month payment for 10 years, and you're going to look at it and think, but it's like no pain, no gain. It's like, well, this is going to kill me, but then it's like, well, all right, it is worthwhile. You understand? I mean, anything that, I've gone past just putting my foot in it. I have fallen into a septic tank, of my own doing. But it's like, this is so excruciating. I have made such an egregious financial move that it's got to be fun. This has got to change my whole life. I hope, that kind of thing. Now back, believe it or not, to the Kyroot of only the stagnant are harmless. Everything you do in life, it is a matter of mathematics. It is the equation of I plus not I equals everything and all sorts of other stuff. And it's not just financial, that's just the easy way to keep track. That is the child's way, again, whether you have a PhD in economics or not, that's the child's way to keep track of it. So everything you do costs. To get this car, if it indeed made you, if you're an ordinary person, that car made you happy for X amount of years, or for the rest of your life, that was just, you thought that was a bargain. What it's done to me, $500,000 was a bargain. Okay, fine. But you do understand, you're going to pay for that. You're going to have to work 2 or 3 jobs. You're going to have to do something. Everything costs. Now, if you get past that and you thought about the great ones, when we're back to another area, I'm sure you'll follow this, like the environmentalists. This good old example, those who would decry, what's this bulldozer doing over here at this beautiful, pristine area? And the bulldozer begin to tear it down. And the person begins to whine and cry and call people, their congressmen, write letters to the editor. Cleared down, a few weeks later, a sign goes up, world's greatest charitable hospital for crippled and dying children. But, and then the person could say, well, I can buy that. I mean, there's nothing more important than the little sick children. Everything has a price. Something had to be paid. In this case, a forest, a nice little lot, was destroyed. I mean, you can call it that. Just absolutely destroyed. Everything a person tries to do, if an ordinary man tries to change, now get past the environmentalists and get past excessive debt for automobile ownership, and consider that you try to change, you try to do something in you, it will always, if an ordinary person could, muck about with their hormones, if an ordinary person could, and put that kind of shock into themselves, they would pay something. Since ordinary people cannot do it, there really is no example for me to use. I'm going to have to back up right quick and go back into playing metaphorical train that could think. And as the Kyroots pointed out tonight, the first thing it would want to do is back up. So I'm going to have to back up a little bit and give you another metaphor. Did everybody follow that? I don't know. We're in a hurry. Back to where there is an example I could make. This is not the example of how it would be if you could actually make a shift in your own DNA. If you could, while alive, jolt your own genetic system which an ordinary person cannot. Everybody's trying to, which is what this is, and buying the car, and etc. And so since there is no example, I'm going to have to back up a little bit and give you one that is as close as you can get. This is a very common one. A man who been addicted to dope, on coke for years, or alcohol. And it just gets to the point that one day, through his brilliant insight, that and the fact that he is now bleeding from every orifice of his body, he decides, I'll quit drinking. And through whatever methods, it's not method, it's fear, of course. There's no actual change. He quits drinking, let us say. The next day, it's very close to the same kind of time schedule with the man who bought the $169,000 car and went out and looked at it. The first day you ask his wife and all his friends, did he actually stop drinking? They say yes. And it makes me want to go light candles and give extra money to the temple. I couldn't believe he would ever stop. Give it about a day. Give it about the same length of time for the guy that owned the Ferrari to realize what he's done, and go back to the family and friends and say, has he quit drinking? Still, and they're going to go, well, yeah. And what they're going to say is, that son of a bitch is driving me nuts. That man is unbearable. That was the price. Do you understand? That is not to pick on people that are reformed drunks. It's got nothing to do with it, but there is no example of people actually doing it, willfully doing it, because that just happens. But notice, he had to destroy something from their view. And what he destroyed was his congeniality. It almost destroyed his personality. I mean, he's nothing like he used to. You ought to come around. You know him when he used to drink. Well, you have been around. You ought to come up here now. He's sitting there in front of the TV, or he's staring at the wall. In the last 2 days, he's gained 40 pounds. He won't talk. And when he does talk, it's just, the man is just a maniac. And then people have actually said this. And they'll, sotto voce, or to themselves, they almost go, I almost wish he'd go back to drinking. God struck me dead for saying that. That was the price. You cannot take the ship of state that seems to be one's own personality, which another Kyroot pointed out, or somebody in a Kyroot pointed out, that one's city-based individual personality is like the hole in a pocket of a suit that you borrowed. If you remember, you put in the rest of it. But whatever it is, if you think, well, I got something undesirable in this pocket. The ordinary person, all they can do, in a sense, they can take it out, and then what? You can't walk around with it, and what are you going to do? Well, all right, you put it in this down pocket. That's it. Back to this. Only the stagnant are harmless. Who is not going to pay any price? Who is not going to run the damage of tearing down these beautiful trees, that lovely virginal kudzu? Who's going to do that? Well, it's going to be somebody in charge or somebody in favor of what? Change. Of course, now we're using crude examples. But think about it in life. Think about even beyond the area of development of our urban or suburban areas. How about the matter of history? On a more collective level, into the outside of the actual physics of tearing down trees and etc. Who seems to be harmless? Who does history take no account of? Is it too obvious? I mean, it's so obvious I don't guess anybody in the world's ever said it. History takes no account of one group of people. Those that didn't do nothing. Pardon the academic talk, but I did. Some of us had a few courses in history. It takes no account of those who didn't do nothing. Those are the harmless. Out in ordinary life, that doesn't mean anything. Now I refer to you, to yourself. Anytime that you feel as though aspects of you are harmless, then what are we faced with? How about the guy tonight who told himself, hey, we're in this together? Well, we are, except for you and me. That's harmless. Yes, I'm doing all right. I really enjoy watching these shows. I enjoy thinking about some of this stuff. Only the harmless, only the stagnant are harmless. If there's no doubt, if there is no kind of fear, in a particular way that you strike in yourself. I'm not going to say I said it. It's a Kyroot here. I'm just trying to interpret as best I can. You might consider it. If you do not frighten you, if you do not find yourself here, not externally, not that you're inclined to go back to drinking or to take up bungee jumping, from a 50-foot perch with a 40-foot bungee or whatever, or 60-foot bungee. Consider only the stagnant are harmless. Okay, so much. You're right. 15 minutes for one that was 5 words long. Only the stagnant are harmless. How about that? This next one, how about, is a half a page. I guess that means we'll be here until Guy Fawkes Day. This was tied into, there were several here. I'm just going to read this one. That's the one that requested. But there was tied in several in a row that kept referring, instead of morals at the bottom of the page, it kept saying about fairy tale. At any rate, so the third one in that series, Kyroots added, and Kyroots said, fairy tale, the definition, which is good enough by itself, obviously. Fairy tale. May I suggest that Kyroots could have been more expansive? All myths, legends, religious fables, all of it. Anything that you think, no matter if it seems to be rather mundane like a childish fairy tale, whether you think it came from the brothers Grimm or the brothers Abraham and Moses, whoever's making up stories. If you think it was just some little kiddish tale or if it's some metaphysical parable. If it's not history, it's a fairy tale, all right? And I don't mean it in the derogatory sense. Legends, myths, etc. So here's what Kyroots says. Fairy tale, the definition. Fairy tale, that which men believe when they don't want to believe what they believe. Huh? You fill in, if you want to. I already gave you the hint. Anything that you want to fill in instead of fairy tale, anything that would fall within the category. And Kyroots said, this was trailings from another creation myth. You know, he keeps digging these up from other universes and realities, but here is parts from another one. As soon as the creatures could see, the first thing they saw was time. And as soon as they saw time, they immediately perceived there to be a hole therein. And after that, it was all downhill, smooth sailing, no sweat, and hold on to your knickers, the past and the future are both closer than we ever imagined. What can you say about that? Well, we've been through some of this without it sounding too, surely it won't, but metaphysical, or in the area of subatomic physics or cosmology, a man's sense of individuality. The level at which the ordinary man operates, I know it's quirky to say it's synonymous with time. It cannot operate without a sense of time. Because although Kyroots made up one myth, that the first thing creatures in this one universe said as soon as the gods made them, and then made them talk, the first thing they said was, where's a mirror? That is not that far removed from them saying, what time is it? Because to say, where's a mirror? And according to an update that Kyroots did tonight, life, gave them one. The first thing they looked, no matter what they said, what was it about? It'd be such things as, is that the way I look? And the tacit part is, no. The ordinary mind would not operate without a sense of time. And it's all the way, without saying too weird to give you back again, the ordinary mind being that which drives and is driven by the secondary world, back to such things as, what would make a man not only go in debt for $169,000 for an automobile, but after he's once done it, and let's assume he had a good night's sleep, came to his senses, 2 days later, why in the world would he get up and go to work when he's faced with not just getting up and going to work this morning, I got to then go to my second job this afternoon, and my third one later tonight to pay for that car. Why would anybody do that? Something's got to drive them. And there has to be a sense of time that I must do it now. There's got to be a sense of pressure. To the ordinary mind, what is time? It is always a sense of pressure. It's not looking at your watch if you can afford one. Why do you look at your watch? Well, something's got to be done about this, whatever it is. I'm either early, I'm late. There's no such thing as an ordinary man's personality, which is to say there's no such thing as a man's talking nervous system up here without a sense of time. Those of you that like to read weird books in the past, other than these dreamers in the early stages of the Dewey Decimal System dreaming about UFOs and monsters from Atlantis and all that, what's the other big one? Primitive peoples all over the world putting up these strange artifacts like Stonehenge, and the people ponder it. And what do they finally decide they all mean? The faces on Easter Island. Every time that they finally get around to it, they go, and I heard a new one. They found a whole bunch of stones that like a wall that fell down in North Georgia. And somebody from Emory University has come up there in the woods up near Chattanooga and looked at it. Those of you who don't know, so all the ones I'm covering, they always go, well, there's no doubt about it. It's probably, could even be the late Stone Age. But at any rate, all of these artifacts, all of these things that they put together are what? And a man will stroke his beard and say, well, I don't think there's any doubt about it. In their own way, this was some sort of, cue the music, calendar. It was some kind of time-keeping device, which is a variation of taking, the Brooklyn Bridge or the Great Pyramid and play with enough numbers, and suddenly a man will come out, or they got these stones, and the guy finally figures it out. All right, if you lay down on your side like this, sometime within 10 hours after the vernal equinox, and you close one eye and you look up, it'll be 7:30 in the night. And people go, my God, what does that mean? Back to what I was saying. I was just trying to show you again that humans don't know what they're doing at the ordinary level, but when they start dreaming of these great past, which there's another Kyroot tonight, only those who don't know where they came from have any wish to go back. That is, if trains could think, what's the first thing they want to do? Let's back up! Which is, humans, as soon as they could talk, hollering, where's the mirror? And back to humans saying, well, our glory days are all behind us. And to show you that, which it's a good thing they don't ever have to major in symbolic logic or any kind, is to say, well, look at Stonehenge or whatever it is. Just look that even before recorded history, we had people, before they could talk, before they had rye bread, before they had television, these people were putting up these big old stones, and when they're just right and you look a certain way, you can say, I think it's 7:30. Maybe your brother go, well, that's close. And they go, is that amazing or what? And you're supposed to go, well, it is kind of, I don't know what you're supposed to say, interesting. Of course, the truth is, look at them and think, well, you're kind of interesting. But the point is, I'm trying to get you to see, even in ways that they consider to be beyond just the run-of-the-mill anthropology, is even they are affected by what I'm saying is like the first thing that the human intellect starts fooling with is a sense of time. And they don't know why, but they have this picture. It's just in our genes that, well, as soon as men begin to do anything unusual, put up all these monuments and build pyramids, they're not just there to show off. It has something to do with keeping time. Bye.